All right, joining me now is Bill Browder, who is the CEO of Hermitage Capital Management. And Bill has a long, long history in Russia. And in fact, tragically, his lawyer at one point was jailed and died in a Russian prison. Bill, there are some scary parallels with what happened to Mr. Magnitsky and what's happening now to Navalny.
So Sergei Magnitsky was my lawyer. He uncovered a massive corruption scheme, and he was taken to prison in retaliation for uncovering it, and slowly tortured and killed in that prison on November 16, 2009, 11 years ago. That prison is Matroshka Tishina prison, which is translated into Sailor's Silence prison. And that's the same prison that Alexei Navalny is sitting in today, another anti-corruption activist, and another thorn in the side of Vladimir Putin.
Let's talk about what's happening in Russia right now. I mean, there are demonstrations across some 60 cities, unprecedented what we've seen today.
Well, first of all, I would say that this is just the beginning of a Russian protest movement. From what I can see, Putin has been stealing from the Russian people for 20 years. Alexei Navalny has been the leading voice challenging Putin's theft. And Putin has massively overplayed his hand in a way that he's now made Navalny into a Nelson Mandela-like character. He provided him an international platform by poisoning him with chemical weapons and not succeeding in killing him. And so the entire Western world is now fully aware of Alexei Navalny. And then Putin sealed his own fate by threatening Navalny with arrest if he returned to Russia, hoping that Navalny would stay out. But in fact, Navalny has risen to the challenge. And by showing that he's neither afraid of poison or prison, he's put Putin in a terrible position, because he's shown himself to be stronger than Putin could ever be. And he's made himself a very attractive figure for young Russians all over the country.
Navalny was poisoned with Novichok, a nerve agent, which no doubt was held by Russian authorities, because you don't buy it just at any drugstore. I mean, this is an illegally produced nerve agent, which by the way, Russia's a signature to the ban on chemical biological weapon production. But so they violated that. They no doubt, and you and I spoke before, this is not some rogue operation by the FSB, the Federal Security Service, because to poison somebody as high profile as Navalny within the country, surely it had Putin's consent.
No, they wouldn't. It's not like they said, "Hey, boss, can we have permission to do this?" This is Putin's directive. Nobody touches Navalny, nor do they touch Boris Nemtsov, who was murdered in front of another opposition figure who was murdered in front of the Kremlin. I mean, there have been so many people who have challenged Putin's legitimacy who have been killed. The list goes on and on and on. Putin is a murderous, kind of a serial killer, if you will, and he needs to be stopped.
All right. I mean, a lot of people would doubt what you were saying a year ago. But suddenly, I think this is different now inside Russia, because this has spread like wildfire on social media. There are tens of millions of views of the arrest of Navalny, the case of Navalny, the jailing of Navalny, and then his corruption video, which he put out, which basically accuses Putin of being little more than a gangland mafia state controller who has pocketed hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, and built this incredible palace near the Black Sea.
The movie is incredible. I'm a expert on Putin's corruption. I've studied it for the last 15 years. But even as an expert, I learned a lot of new things in the movie, and it really makes your blood boil to see the extent of the luxury and the lavishness that Putin has given to himself at the expense of the Russian people. the average Russian can't even get medicine in a hospital, and Putin has vineyards and underground parking garages and underground skating rinks and arbitoriums and just all sorts of crazy stuff at this this palace that's like 60 times the land is 60 times the size of Monaco. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, don't forget the pole dancing disco. And I might add that some of the protesters were carrying these brushes that you clean toilets with today, because apparently, the brushes in that mansion were purchased for something like $800 each. So they were carrying them as a symbol of corruption. So Bill, look, what is motivating the demonstrations? Is it just Navalny, or is it tough economic times with a pandemic, basically the suspension of democracy there, the extension of Putin's term until 2036 potentially? There are just a lot of things feeding into this now, creating a perfect storm.
Well, mainly is Putin has been ripping off the Russian people for the last 20 years. The main thing that's fueling this is the attempted assassination of Alexei Navalny, his arrest, and then Alexei finally calling people to go out into the streets specifically to free him, and enough is enough. Putin took a step too far in this case.
Do you think this is going to end quickly, or do you think this is the beginning, because they have already called for more demonstrations next week?
This is going to be like Belarus, and it's going to more people, when people see what happened this week, more people will come out next week, and that's Putin's worst nightmare.
Should he be releasing Navalny now to put the fire out, or are we past that?
There's no way he can do that. You cannot. In Russia, it's like a prison yard. You can't show weakness. Putin is now a prisoner to his own actions at this point.
Why did they stupidly arrest him when he arrived back?
They had no choice. When they threatened him with arrest to try to keep him away, that was the moment that they made. That was their big mistake, because by having him come back, they couldn't not arrest him. But by arresting him, they've set off. They've lit the fuse on this situation, which is spinning out of control for them.
Will you just look down the road and tell me how you think that how this unfolds now, how the future goes now in Russia? Because a lot of people have always said, if there's a spark, Russia can burn. In terms of people, reaching their end of patience with Putin and the Kremlin, do you think this is the spark now?
I don't know. Alexei Navalny doesn't know, and Vladimir Putin doesn't know. It's anything could happen. What do the Russian people do? What does the international community do? What does Putin do? It's all very uncertain. It's a totally dynamic situation. But what I can say is that this is a mess of Putin's own making.
And what should the international community do? Because we talked about sanctions before.
It's very clear. For the last 10 years, I've been advocating for a law called the Magnitsky Act, named after my lawyer, Sergei Magnitsky, who was murdered in Russian prison. The Magnitsky Act imposes visa sanctions and asset freezes on human rights violators. Alexei Navalny was one of the many Russian figures who supported the Magnitsky Act, along with Mikhail Khodorkovsky and another Russian opposition figure, Garry Kasparov, Boris Nemtsov, Vladimir Kara-Murza. All the major Russian opposition have realized this is the tool to be used. And this is the tool now which should be used. 31 countries have the Magnitsky Act, and it should be applied to the billionaire bankers and enablers of Vladimir Putin who are funding his regime and allowing him to do this terrible stuff.
Bill Browder, thanks. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.